I'm Andrea Nelson Trice, here to talk about my new book, Strong Together, Building Partnerships Across Cultures in an Age of Distrust. I set out to write this book to answer some what I see are key questions for us as educators. What do graduates from American universities commonly lack when they begin careers in international development? In the eyes of majority world leaders, what are Western professionals' greatest assets, as well as our greatest limitations? So, to answer these questions, I interviewed 90 leaders from a variety of global South countries, as well as from the US, who are involved in development work in multiple countries around the world. My background, I have a PhD in higher and adult education from the University of Michigan. I worked at Purdue University as a faculty member for several years, and for the past 15 years, I've worked as a program evaluator, largely with international development organizations, again, around the world. I have 2 decades of publishing on international education, cross-cultural dynamics, and empowerment and equity, topics that have really been a key thread throughout my entire career. So Strong Together contrasts the perspectives of majority world and American leaders with regard to what the priorities are for international development work, and is the contrast in terms of how they approach their work, in terms of the goals that they set, the problem that they see that needs to be solved, the timelines that they work with, the marketing approaches, all kinds of different contrasts. And part of the goal is wanting to help people understand the friction that so often results when Westerners and Southerners work together on projects for international development. Not only understanding why the friction exists, largely in this book using a cultural lens to help people understand our differences in assumptions and approaches and pace of our work, but also to understand ways that we can work together more effectively. I've set out when I started this book, really committed to not having a book that finger points or blames or suggests somebody's wrong and somebody's right. There's a villain and there's a hero. Rather, what I was looking for is, what are our strengths? What do we each bring to the table? And how can we work together more effectively? And again, part of what I was trying to do was look for reasons why different frictions exist, to help people understand, again, no rights and wrongs, but just why is it that we operate so differently and then so many programs fail rather than succeed, partly as a result of our differences. So it's a really practical book. It's research-based, but very accessible. As I've had copies out to different people for review, that's one of the pieces of feedback that I'm getting. And then I also really wanted the people that read this to engage with the material, to think about what the stories that they're reading, the quotes that are woven throughout the book. And so I have discussion questions at the end of each chapter. Questions such as, heightened independence rather than interdependence is a universal goal. Do you believe this statement is accurate, and why? Or, which do you believe is the most important suffering to address first? Physical suffering or a lack of hope and personal dignity? So they're not easy questions, and they're not necessarily right or wrong questions, but they are questions that are essentially raised through the stories that are shared, and I want people to sit with them. And I challenge the reader to talk with somebody from a different cultural perspective, to learn about more deeply another perspective about answers to these and other questions. As I've said, the book emphasizes global South voices and perspectives, which I think is really crucial to preparing our students to work in other cultures. And it's something that I don't see in a lot of other books. And it also offers hope to the reader. Again, not finger pointing, but understanding of the strengths that they bring to international work, as well as the strengths that people from the culture, whether it's Cambodia, Malawi, Peru, whatever the culture would be, what their strengths commonly are. So Westerners' strengths, as I heard again and again in the interviews and as I identified in case studies that I was conducting for this book, Westerners bring entrepreneurial skills and formal training in entrepreneurship, We bring access to and knowledge of how to secure funding for programs, and we bring social capital both within and outside of the country of focus. These are what I heard from majority world leaders as they described what Westerners, what assets they most value. But then helping the reader to understand the strengths of Global South leaders. Common strengths that I heard in the interviews were a deep understanding of the resources that we have here available in our location, social capital within the culture, within communities that outsiders will never have. At times, an understanding of poverty and what it is to live without agency, and an understanding of the culture in a way that outsiders typically never will. It's a book designed to help readers think more deeply about their motivations for development work and about their assumptions about how the world is and how it should be. I hope that you'll consider it for your own reading, for your own enrichment, and then if you are teaching a course where this may be available, this might be useful for you, free desk copies are available from my book distributor here in the States. So if you're considering that, you'd like a desk copy, just contact me and I will put you in contact with the book distributor. My email address is atrice999@gmail.com. Again, that's atrice999@gmail.com. Thanks for your time in watching this.